All right, today we're going to dive into something really old school but super interesting, the humble poultice. We're basing this explainer on the teachings of folk herbalist Walt. We're going to break down what they are, how they're said to work, and even get into some specific recipes.
So let's just jump right in with something that's going to make you go, what? Ever heard of a spit poultice? Yeah, sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? But stick with me here, because we're going to explain what that is and why it's thought of as this super quick, in-a-pinch kind of remedy. Okay, but before we get to the spit, let's cover the basics. What is a poultice? At its heart, it's super simple. It's just a soft, moist mass of stuff, like plant material, flour, clay, that you put on your body to help with soreness or inflammation. You just hold it in place with a cloth. That's it. It's an ancient idea, and you'll see it's really, really versatile.
So the big question is, how do these things actually work? Well, according to our source material, the main idea is actually really simple. It all comes down to two basic actions. A poultice can either push something in or it can pull something out.
And this slide shows you those two sides perfectly. On the one hand, you've got your drawing out agents. Think of things like clay or activated charcoal. The claim is that these are fantastic for pulling stuff out of the body, like a splinter or maybe toxins from a bite. Then, on the other side, you have the pushing in ingredients. These are things like herbs or castor oil, where the idea is to deliver their helpful properties right through the skin.
Okay, so maybe you're thinking, I want to try making one. What do you actually need? It's probably simpler than you think. The source breaks it all down into just 3 main parts, and one of them you don't even always need.
So, number 1, you need your active material. This is the main event, right? The clay, the charcoal, the herbs. Number 2 is a binder. This one's optional, but it's super helpful. We're talking about things like psyllium husk or ground flaxseed. They just help hold the whole thing together and keep it from drying out. And that brings us to number 3, moisture. You absolutely need something wet, like water or aloe vera juice, because as the source points out, a dry poultice is a useless poultice.
All right, now for the really cool part. Let's get practical. We're going to look at 3 specific recipes from the source so you can see how this all comes together. And we'll start with something you probably have in your kitchen right now. Yep, the potato. Who knew? According to our source, if you grate up a raw potato and make a poultice out of it, it's a fantastic remedy for burns, especially those really intense burns you might get from something like welding.
But it's not just for burns. The source material claims it's good for a whole bunch of other things too. We're talking boils, swelling, mastitis, even things like spider bites and ear infections. Pretty amazing for a simple potato.
And to really drive this home, the source tells this incredible story about a welder who got terrible propane burns all over his face. They just kept applying fresh potato and aloe poultices for hours and hours. And the result? He supposedly had 0 scarring. None. The story goes that the doctor said if he'd gone the conventional route, his face would have absolutely been scarred for life. Wow.
Okay, next up, cabbage. A cabbage poultice is supposed to be amazing for fighting inflammation, easing pain, and drawing out infections. But there's a really important and kind of funny warning that you need to hear about this one.
So people use it for things like varicose veins, bruises, all sorts of stuff. But look at that note at the bottom. This is a direct warning from the source. Do not use red cabbage, only green. Why? Well, because it will stain everything. And I mean everything.
And there's a great story behind this. The speaker talks about this one time with a guy from England. They were out of green cabbage, but they had a red one. He figured, that'll work, right? Wrong. It was a complete mess. Stained sheets, stained pajamas. Don't use red cabbage. You've been warned.
Our third and final recipe example is the fig poultice. This one has some really deep historical, even biblical roots. And according to the source, this is the one you turn to for some more serious problems like growths and cysts.
And you can see the claimed uses here are pretty serious. We're talking everything from scar tissue and cysts to breast lumps and even cancer. Now, it's really important for me to say here that this explainer is just presenting what's in the source material. It's absolutely not meant to be medical advice.
So where does this idea come from? Well, the source actually points straight to the Bible, quoting a passage from Isaiah where a lump of figs is used as a plaster for a boil. It just goes to show you how long this specific remedy has been around.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. We've seen a few examples. But how do you actually make one? Let's say a simple one from a fresh plant. The source lays it out in 6 really simple steps. And it's super logical when you break it down. First, figure out what you need it for. Then, decide on the herb you're going to use. Estimate how much you'll need. You don't want to run out halfway through. Then you just crush up the leaf or stem to get all those juices flowing, put it on the spot, and wrap it with a bandage to keep it there. Leave it on for up to a few hours, and just put on a fresh one if you need to. Simple as that.
Well, this whole process brings up a really big question, and according to the source, it's maybe the most important question. With all the plants and options out there, how in the world do you know which one to use?
I mean, really think about it for a second. You could have one expert who swears by a certain herb, and another expert on the other side of the world who recommends something completely different for the exact same problem. So, with all these options, how do you choose? What's the secret?
Well, here's the answer straight from the source material. It's simple and direct. The advice is, ask God. And that really shifts the whole thing, doesn't it? It takes it from being about memorizing facts from a book to something based on intuition and faith.
And the thinking behind this is pretty clear. The idea is that God would know everything about your specific situation, your body, your problem, what herbs you can actually get your hands on, what you can afford, all of it. And then the most important part of that whole process is that you have to actually listen for the answer. So really, the big takeaway from all this, at least from this source's perspective, is that making a poultice isn't just about mixing plants and water. It's about weaving together what you know about plants with your own intuition, and for this speaker, a sense of belief.
And that kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? No matter what you're using, whether it's plants or clay or something else, this whole approach makes you wonder, beyond just the physical stuff, what role does our own belief, our own intention, actually play in healing? It's definitely something to think about.